NBC's Phil McCausland joins us now. And Phil, you've been doing some reporting about the threats to nuclear plants, of which there are 4 in Ukraine. The threats that they faced even before this war broke out, you'd been doing some reporting on what that might look like. Based on the little that we've heard so far, and again, the reporting is still very early, what are kind of your top lines right now based on what this attack would represent?
Yeah, Joshua, like you said, I think it's important to emphasize it's still early and we don't have anything necessarily exactly confirmed yet. But I mean, what the main concerns were that these 4 power plants have 15 operating nuclear reactors. The real concern here is that they would be damaged in a conflict, left unmaintained by the staff. These have to be constantly operated by a dedicated staff, constantly ensuring that there's no meltdown, that there's nothing overwhelms it. Something that we saw, for example, at 3 Mile Island was close to that. It's also important that they're not cut off from the larger power grid, which is needed to cool the reactors as well. That's why they have large-scale diesel generators to maintain those power plants and ensure that they are able to cool those reactors if they needed to do a shutdown. Obviously, all of that is very volatile. Although these reactors, according to Ukraine, are able to withstand something as large as an impact from an aircraft. However, just emphasizing again, what we need to be worried about here is whether or not we can get the crews in there, particularly firefighters, who may be currently under threat. That's one thing that Ukrainian officials have emphasized right now that they can't get firefighters in. So that is one thing that we could potentially be afraid of here.
Can you just level set for us a little bit in terms of the nature of what this threat might be? I don't want to, I don't want to overblow this, right? This war is already scary enough, and in a vacuum of information, your imagination can go to some very dark places. But clearly, a catastrophe at a nuclear plant is no small matter. Level set for us a little bit based on where this plant is, how big it is, how much power it generates, what's at stake here?
Yeah, I mean, I think last week we were all worried about Chernobyl, right? Chernobyl, however, is in a 1,000 square mile exclusion zone, which means there's not a lot there. These power plants are closer to cities and towns, some of them large, and their fuel is much more radioactive than Chernobyl. So if we're thinking about an incident like Chernobyl, we're looking at something that would be much larger here in this particular area. Again, there's 3 other power plants. This is the largest one, however. So, I mean, whatever occurs here is really scary. And speaking to experts, I got the sense that they did not even want to consider necessarily what that would look like exactly. A lot of them had a lot more faith in Russia, particularly considering its history with nuclear power, would be very careful about firing at all close to these power plants. One expert even said, my feeling would be that they would even bring in crews in order to operate them if they were to capture them. What it appears so far, though, again, our confirmation is not quite there, is that they're not being as careful as we all had hoped.
With regard to that, one of the things that you mentioned in some of your recent reporting is that reportedly Russian forces have held the Ukrainian staff, at least by some accounts, hostage at Chernobyl and forced them to keep working, according to the acting director of that site. NBC's Keir Simmons put a question to Sergei Lavrov, who is Russia's foreign minister, kind of Russia's equivalent of the Secretary of State, about the decision-making calculus that Vladimir Putin is undertaking. Here's Keir's question and the foreign minister's answer. Watch.
Minister, President Putin is described by many in the West as erratic and isolated. Can you reassure people about President Putin's reasoning? Is he taking advice? And when was the last time you were able to advise him?
President Putin, in the past weeks, has provided detailed comments on our position. That is the position of our leadership.
Phil, I know it's a dangerous game to try to get inside Vladimir Putin's head, but I think based on at least what the Russians are saying, something like a wanton attack on a nuclear plant would not make sense, that they would presumably understand the amount of danger that an attack on this facility would represent?
Yeah, you would imagine so. And again, I mean, this was, I think, something that was unthinkable to me reporting on this and to experts who I had spoken to. It's tough to get inside Putin's head for sure. I mean, it's unclear whether this would be something that he would have directed or, whether this is an incidental assault or what exactly occurred here and what is the cause of this fire. We have to be very, very careful, I guess, about how we characterize it. But it is extremely scary. And you mentioned that those staff at Chernobyl. I think that's another thing that we have to be worried about here is this conflict going to make the workers on these nuclear power plants afraid to come to work? If they're going to be held hostage or if they're going to come under attack like this, that, again, it really raises the stakes here and makes this a really scary situation, not just for this power plant, but for the 3 others in the country.
NBC's Phil McCausland with a little bit more context on nuclear power. Phil, thanks very much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.